Hey guys, welcome to Planet Zoo, the Africa Pack and update 1.6. Quick video here to take a peek at the brand new animals and let's look at some of the new behaviours that's going on. Oh, and also an update to the starter habitat series to include all of the new animals. So yeah, these enclosures that I've set up to showcase the animals, they're looking a little bit drab and square, I'll admit they do. And that's to make sure that they comply with the starter habitat series blueprints. If you're new to the channel, basically the starter habitat series is a set of blueprints for every animal in the game. I've uploaded them to the Steam workshop and the habitats are basically designed for beginner players or those that just want functionality. So there's no excessive piece count, they're all in a grid friendly shape, and all are made from base game pieces, so you don't need DLCs to use them. The exception obviously being that if you're using an animal that's part of the DLCs, then you'll need the DLC for that habitat. So yes, I've updated the series to include the southern white rhinoceros, the meerkat, African penguin and the Fennec Fox, and these are the enclosures I've created for them with that in mind. Anyway, let's take a look at the animals. So the southern white rhinoceros is found in the grasslands and savannas of southern Africa, and in the game, I think size-wise, this is one of the biggest animals we have. It's definitely bigger than the Indian one, I'm pretty sure of that. They've done a great job modelling the rhino, so you'll notice some really great features, like on the tips of the ears, they have these really hairy tufts. And that looks really good. The rhinos don't do a lot of moving about, but when they do, it feels like they have distinctive movements. For enrichment, there's a good selection of enrichment items that the rhino can interact with. Something that did surprise me with the rhino was that for their requirement needs, the southern white rhinos don't have any water requirements, and although they do need a fair bit of space, I just figured that they'd need water as well because I think the Indian rhinos did. Space-wise, they need a lot more space than the Indian rhino. I guess that makes sense considering they are quite a bit bigger than the Indian variety. Anyway, that's the rhino. Let's take a look at the African penguin. So they definitely look a lot different than the king penguins we have. Although, I'll be honest, movement-wise, they're not that dissimilar to how the king penguins were animated. When they brought in the king penguins, it was groundbreaking because it was very different movement than we'd seen in any of the other animals before. This all feels very similar to how the king penguins were animated. So they walk the same, the mating is the same, swimming is the same. About the only difference is the African penguins don't slide on their bellies like the king penguins do. They also obviously don't have any of the snow and cold climate requirements that the king penguins did, and they need a lot less space too. Enrichment wise, it's generally the same as the king penguins, but with a few new toys. So the curio ball and the bubble machine. With the curio ball, I think they're meant to be attracted to the colours, so they'll nip at it a little bit and then they get a bit flappy and excited. With the bubble machine, they kind of stare at it and then they get a bit excited and nip at the bubbles as well. That's everything with the penguins, so let's take a look at the Fennec Fox. Now, the foxes are super tiny. I never realised quite how small they actually are. They live in a pack and they do interact with each other all the time. I've spotted that they seem to have the same animations as the wild dogs do, so it could be that they've based movements and whatnot on the wild dogs. I did notice that the ears do move a bit like you'd expect, maybe not as much as I thought they would because the Fennec Fox, it's kind of blind and it hunts at night, so the ears are that big because it uses them to hunt for its prey. So I don't know, maybe I was expecting them to have their head to the ground and their ears pointed downwards, mimicking what they do when they hunt. But regardless, it's still pretty impressive. Enrichments for the Fennec Fox, we've got the curio ball again, plus we have a tennis ball. I can't believe how excited I am by something so simple, but the fact that we've got tennis balls in the game, I get giddy with that information. I think I would be delighted if some of the other species in the game were updated to play with the tennis balls. Right now, it's just a couple of the new animals that'll do that, but can you imagine if you could put a tennis ball in, like with the timber wolves? How cool and cute would that be? Fennec Fox also has this awesome log tunnel that they'll run through. So I'm thinking of ways to bury this tunnel in between rocks or something to make it look a bit more natural. I need to have a play around with that to see if it works. So that's the Fennec Fox. Last but not least is the meerkat. And by far this is the Africa Pack animal that's been given the most love in terms of behaviours. I know it sounds silly to say, but they actually look, sound and act like meerkats. there's a heap of new behaviours they display. So, for example, being the lookout. Now, I figured the Meerkat would likely do the lookout thing, but what I thought they'd do would be to, say, hold the pose for maybe 3 seconds and then move on. Sometimes they do that, but there always seems to be a proper lookout somewhere, and they will hold that pose for quite a while, like they do in the wild. So that's really cool. The other new behaviour that I know a lot of people are going to go crazy over is the digging. Now, there was a lot of speculation about how the developers would mimic it, the Meerkat tunnelling, and I've got to say, I think they've done a good job of it. Basically, for the digging, the Meerkat will dig at the ground for a second and then a hole just magically appears like this. And they'll drop down into it, and then at some unspecified point within the enclosure, they'll pop back up out again. I've been playing for a while and I've yet to lose a Meerkat underground, so I'm pretty impressed with that. I did have visions of meerkats getting trapped underground or floating off into space, but there's been nothing like that. Everything feels like it's working as intended, and they are a joy to watch. I'd say in all, with all of the new build pieces and some really interesting new animals, Africa Pack DLC is shaping up very well. Keep an eye out on the channel and I'll have some more updates with new and more interesting habitats coming soon. If you haven't seen it, go take a look at the oasis that I've built. This is basically a fantasy kind of zoo that I came up with to showcase the new pieces. And, well, yeah, just go and take a look and you'll see what I mean when you think of fantasy. Anyway, that's everything about the new animals. So, thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.